Hello, and welcome to today's training on resisting sexual coercion, empowering adolescents through clinical conversations. Here is an overview of this training. We will define sexual coercion, explain why adolescents are more vulnerable, describe potential consequences of experiencing sexual coercion, discuss communication strategies that can be used to talk about healthy and unhealthy relationships with adolescents, and finally, how to respond if sexual coercion is disclosed. What is sexual coercion? Sexual coercion is a non-physical tactic used to make or force a person to participate in any unwanted sexual activity. The person may feel pressured, manipulated, tricked, guilted, intimidated, threatened, or forced in a non-physical way. In short, consent, meaning a yes that is given freely with enthusiasm and the option to change one's mind, is taken away. Coercion is the complete opposite of consent. While sexual coercion can happen to anyone, we are focusing on adolescents in this training because they face unique vulnerabilities that put them at an increased risk. So what makes adolescents vulnerable to sexual coercion? Developmentally, adolescence is a time when young people are exploring and developing their unique identities, understanding healthy relationships, and growing their independence. But at the same time, this stage also makes them more vulnerable to coercion. Many adolescents haven't yet developed the confidence or communication skills to say no to unwanted pressures, and sexual pressure is no exception. Their limited relationship experience, coupled with their innate desire for experience and independence, can complicate their ability to set firm boundaries with peers and partners. We are also seeing stronger social and digital influences, like peers and influencers normalizing coercive behavior or pressure to share intimate photos or engage in sexual activity. In some cases, partners may see an opportunity to exploit this vulnerable developmental stage, particularly if they are older or there is a real or perceived power imbalance in the relationship or in the social group. Finally, fear of being judged or punished can keep adolescents silent about these experiences, especially if they don't trust adults to respond supportively. As healthcare providers, supporting adolescents helps them to build lifelong skills in safety, autonomy, and healthy relationships. Knowing why adolescents are at risk is only the beginning. What happens when coercion goes unrecognized or unaddressed? Research shows that there's an increased risk of unintended pregnancies and STIs. Similarly, there are risks to mental health, including low self-esteem, anxiety, depression, and PTSD. Behavioral issues can arise, and other relationships can be negatively impacted. Now that we've talked about what sexual coercion looks like, why adolescents are more vulnerable, and the associated risks, the next step is for us to talk about what we can do as healthcare providers to help and empower them to avoid sexual coercion. Having conversations with adolescents can sometimes be more challenging than with adults. They may be more embarrassed and become defensive when discussing personal issues. Their desire for independence and autonomy may make them think that providers are being judgy or patronizing. They might not be honest due to negative past experiences, or they may feel fear and embarrassment that anything that they share with you might be shared with their parents or their guardians. Here are some strategies to help minimize communication challenges with adolescents. First, build trust and rapport. Start with some small talk. Short, friendly conversations before discussing more sensitive issues can help them feel more comfortable. Be genuine and honest, and discuss the limits of confidentiality and mandatory reporting. Second, be very intentional about the language you use. Client-centered language can help them feel heard and validated rather than being judged, which that goes a long way towards building trust with an adolescent. Ask permission or emphasize choices. That encourages autonomy and empowerment. Using trauma-informed language is non-judgmental, and phrasing as such reduces or avoids re-traumatization and promotes emotional safety. Use youth-friendly language, avoiding medical jargon and complex terminology. Don't be afraid to ask them what they mean when they use their slang. Sometimes they can't understand us just as much as we can't understand them. They may be too embarrassed to ask questions or seek clarification if they don't understand something. So make sure you confirm their understanding by asking open-ended questions or asking for feedback. Next, normalize sensitive topics. Use opt-out language instead of opt-in language to reduce perceived assumptions, stigma, or shame. Lastly, respect an adolescent's experience and their autonomy. Empower them to make informed choices about their care. What is the best way to bring up healthy relationships and sexual coercion during a visit? You don't want to broach the topic as if it were a checklist item. This could make it seem really sincere, and adolescents pick up on those kind of things. Often, it can be brought up organically in the conversation. For example, when discussing an adolescent's desire for contraception or STI testing. If a relationship hasn't been brought up, or the reason for their visit isn't contraception or STI testing, you may ask them, is it okay if we talk about relationships today? Normalize it by adding, I like to talk about this with all of my patients your age. If they've already disclosed that they are or have been in a relationship, you may say something like, sometimes young people are in relationships in which a partner is pushing them to have sex when they aren't really sure they want to. It can be really difficult to say no. What has your experience been? You can even normalize this by adding in, many of my patients have told me they've experienced this. Or you can say something like, I don't know if this is a concern for you, but many adolescents I see are dealing with abuse issues. So I've started asking everyone questions about sexual coercion, and then go on to explain what sexual coercion is. If the adolescent discloses coercion or some other type of violence, listen and respond supportively in a non-judgmental manner. Responding to disclosure will be discussed later in the training. Discussing commonly used tactics and giving concrete examples of what could be said can help solidify an adolescent's understanding of sexual coercion and recognize if they are experiencing it in their own relationships. Over the next several slides, we'll review common tactics used to pressure or coerce someone into sexual activity, along with examples of how they may appear in real conversations, illustrated in the conversation bubbles on the right. The first tactic is repeated pressure asking for sex, saying things like, if you really loved me, you'd do it, or you don't know what you do to me, making one feel guilty or obligated to say yes. They may also leverage holidays or special occasions. Another tactic is to make someone feel like it's too late to say no if they've already said yes. They may say, but you already said yes, or you can't just make someone stop. You might hear things like, everything's perfect. Why are you ruining this? Or, I'll break up with you if you don't have sex with me. Statements like these use guilt manipulation, subtle threats to the relationship to pressure someone into sexual activity. Adolescents also report partners threatening to spread lies and rumors, sometimes going so far as to use sextortion, saying things like, I'll just tell everyone you did it anyway, or everyone already thinks we have, so you might as well, or I'll post those pictures of you. And finally, making promises, saying things like, I'll make it worth your while, or making more specific or tangible promises like, I'll take you to the dance if you hook up with me, are commonly used. Once we've opened the door to talk about sexual coercion, it's just as important to balance that discussion with what healthy and respectful relationships look like. When adolescents understand the difference, not just what to avoid, but what to seek and expect,
It helps them build confidence and set boundaries. These conversations can shift the focus from fear to empowerment, giving young people the tools to identify mutual respect, open communication, and emotional safety in their relationships. So as we move forward, let's look at how to talk with teens about what makes a relationship healthy and how to support them in recognizing and nurturing those qualities. This is the Healthy Relationship Wheel from the Reproductive Health National Training Center. At the center of the wheel is respect, surrounded by the key elements that make up a respectful relationship. Starting at the top of the wheel, these elements are accountability, safety, honesty, support, cooperation, and trust. Each of these elements represents an equal slice of the wheel, emphasizing that all parts are equally important and work together to create a balanced, healthy relationship. The Healthy Relationship Wheel is a useful tool to share with adolescents during counseling. Show it to the adolescent and ask them, which statements on this wheel describe your relationship with your partner? Which statements on this wheel are the most important to you when you think of respect, and why? Which statements on this wheel can help you deal with conflict or disagreements in a healthy way? Asking these open-ended questions will help guide these conversations about healthy relationships. Another helpful tool is this relationship spectrum table. This table visually compares healthy, unhealthy, and abusive relationships across the key characteristics of the Healthy Relationship Wheel and help to identify where a relationship may fall on the spectrum. It is designed as an educational tool, particularly for adolescents, to promote awareness and self-reflection. Ask open-ended questions and encourage adolescents to consider the characteristics of their own relationships. For more detailed information listed on the Healthy Relationship Wheel and the Relationship Spectrum, please visit www.rhntc.org and search for them under resources.
Even when adolescents understand the difference between healthy and unhealthy behaviors in relationships, they may still struggle to say no or to get out of a coercive situation. As providers during our counseling, we can provide them with some practical skills and techniques that can help them to refuse and avoid these pressures. These skills and techniques can help adolescents be clear on what they want in a relationship and how to handle these difficult situations. Teach them to say no assertively, using a firm tone and serious facial expressions. They can create physical space between themselves and their partner, such as crossing their arms or actually moving away. If they're engaged in any type of physical contact, they can stop that immediately. Redirecting is also a good way of getting out of that situation. Finding a distraction, suggesting an alternative activity, and a change in the environment. Tell them to walk away or hang out with friends instead of alone. Let's switch gears and focus on what to do when an adolescent does disclose that coercion or another form of violence has occurred. These moments can be difficult for both the adolescent and the provider, but they're also an opportunity to build trust and safety. Use client-centered and trauma-informed language to prioritize safety, trust, empowerment, and respect. We want to make sure that the adolescent feels heard, believed, and supported, not judged, pressured, or interrogated. Validate their experience and recognize how difficult it can be to disclose. You can say something like, "Thank you for trusting me with this information. It takes a lot of courage to talk about something like this." Avoid interrogating them or pressuring them for details. Only ask what you need to know to provide care. When applicable, be transparent and maintain their trust by reminding them about your role and duty as a mandatory reporter. Ensure their safety, immediate and future. You can reinforce the skills that we just talked about. Encourage them to talk with a parent or guardian about what is going on. Work with them to establish a care plan with you and talk about what next steps might look like. Finally, offer support and connect them with resources. Remember, a trauma-informed response, even a brief one, can make a powerful difference in whether an adolescent feels believed and supported enough to seek further help from you or another provider. As we wrap up this training, I want to leave you with this thought. When we counsel adolescents about how to recognize pressure, assert their boundaries, healthy relationships, and seeking support, we're not just checking a box. We're giving them tools that can help protect them for life. Each of us has the opportunity to make that conversation count. Thank you for your participation in this training. For questions and additional information, please contact familyplanning.health@tn.gov.